All right, it's 2026, and here we are. We're in another real estate year. You might be out there watching this video, and you might be a home buyer who's just been waiting for the right opportunity the last few years. It's been a crazy few years in real estate. The prices have, continued to go up a little bit last 3 years, stabilized a little bit. The rates have been all over the place, and we often hear home buyers say, like, we're just going to wait a little bit longer. We're waiting for better interest rates. We're waiting for better prices. And it just seems to never be lining up the way that home buyers want it to. So I wanted to bring a mortgage expert on today to kind of talk to you about making a move now scenario where it just might not make sense to wait anymore for your family. And I've got a guest with me today, Kevin Keechler with Mortgage Equity Partners. And I want to talk to Kevin about, where we're at and kind of give us some information on like an actual case study on why it makes sense to maybe make the move now for your family and get the lower payment you're looking for later. So welcome, Kevin. And Kevin, just give us an overview first of like where we are in the mortgage world and what you see for 2026. And then I'd love to hear the case study that you were telling me about the other day. It's a story about a family who's really put themselves in a great position by making a smart move, guided by an expert loan officer like Kevin. Kevin, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for having me. So first, the mortgage market right now looks actually pretty good compared to where it's been over the last couple of years. So rates peaked about 3 years ago in late 2023, almost at 8%. So we're down a full 2 percentage points, down to six, and there have been many weeks where we've been below 6%, especially for first-time home buyers. So that's the good news. And what I'd like to do now is actually tell you a story about a client I worked with and started working with him back in late 2022 and 2023 when we first got that initial interest rate spike. So
Yeah.
I'm going to share some just a summary of what this looks like. So this client was a first-time homebuyer, 2022, came to me for pre-approval. He was a little skittish. He thought, well, home prices have gone up 20 or 30% over the previous 2 years during COVID. Interest rates had gone way up. They were almost 7% at the time. And he was uncertain. And then one thing changed. He got engaged to be married. So he decided, okay, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to buy a house. I'm getting married, and now's the time to do it. So in September of 2023, so if you see this first column here, he paid $559,000 for a house in the western suburbs of Boston. He put 5% down. He scraped it together. He had to pay PMI because he put less than 20% down, but that was okay. He could afford it. And so here you can see he ended up just principal, interest, and PMI. He was paying over $3,600 a month.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the third column, and this is the good news, 2 years later, he came back to me to refinance. And one of the first things we do is we appraise the house. And you can see the value of his house went up from 559,000 to 615,000.
Hmm.
And keep in mind that's his equity, right? That he essentially earned it as an investment. So the second thing that happened is he paid his mortgage down to 522,000. Interest rates went down by 3/4 of a point. So he got a double benefit. His principal and interest payment dropped because of the lower mortgage amount, and also because of his increased equity. And also, you'll notice the PMI payment. His PMI payment dropped by more than 50% because he now had about 15% equity in the house instead of 5. And PMI is tied to how much equity you have in the house. In fact, it goes away when you have 20% equity. So again, double benefit. And again, with no points and no closing costs, dropped the rate by 0.75%. His total monthly payment went down by about $400 a month. I went to this guy's closing. It was great. We were sitting around the closing table, and it was almost like he couldn't believe it. And then he told me that he and his wife were expecting. And I thought that
Wow.
this was a great way to kind of dive into the world of building a family. So,
That is amazing. That is amazing. And I don't think a lot of people realize that mortgage insurance does go down the more equity you have in the property. And the other thing I would note from this too is the appreciation that he saw is more or less a typical market appreciation. You know, a lot of times over the course of a long period of time, we see anywhere from 2 to 5%. I mean, certainly there's years where it spikes 10%. We haven't seen that in quite a while. And even if it's stagnant one year, it tends to make up for itself the next year in appreciation. And that's just, that's roughly $55,000 in appreciation is what I'd call normal appreciation. So
yep,
I think that's important to note too, because I hear people say, "Well, how do I know it's going to appreciate?" If you stay in there long enough, it will. That is just what the market does and always will. Is it
yep,
just it does grow over time. It grows
yep,
with increases in income and increases in everything else in our lives in the economy. There always is a long-term appreciation of house that might vary year to year, but it always happens. The other
yep,
thing that yeah, on our last call, Kevin, when you and I were chatting, that you said you don't explain a lot, but still think is important is in this scenario also. 2 years in, he's getting the full. That buyer is getting the full benefits of the tax savings and the interest write-off from that loan as well. And just for simple math, in a scenario like this, if he refinances that and he's paying 3,100 in principal, probably 3,000 of that in the first few years is per month is interest. And that
yes,
interest, let's say it's $35,000 a year. If you are simple math in a 25% tax bracket, that's probably $8,000 in tax savings at the end of the year that you will either get back in a refund or reduce the amount you may be withholding during the year. So that's
right,
almost, call it $700 a month. His
right,
net, if you really want to look at it from a net perspective, his net mortgage payment would be down somewhere around $2,300-$2,400 a month,
yep,
which is really one level of a multifamily in Worcester right now. So,
right,
these are the scenarios that I know it's tough to get into home ownership, but the important thing is getting into home ownership because
right,
2 years down the road, look at what your client did.
right,
Now, imagine this client 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. I hear sometimes people say, like, God, I don't know how they are affording that $800,000 home. Well, the chances are they had another home that they started in,
right,
that they bought in the 500 range, and they built, they had some equity build up and some mortgage pay down in the tax savings over 5 years, 7 year period, and now they're trading up into another home. They're not necessarily affording the $700,000 home. They're trading up and moving that equity into another home. So,
right.
home ownership,
Yeah, you make a good point. And also, we should take a look at what would have happened hypothetically if this borrower had waited 2 years. And if you look on my screen, that's the middle column. So let's pretend he didn't buy his house for 559,000. It never came
Mhm.
on the market, but he waited. He waited 2 years. And if he had waited 2 years, he would have paid 615,000 because that is what that house was appraising for last fall. A
Mm,
5% down payment is now $3,000 more that he has to come out of pocket. His mortgage is much higher. So even though the mortgage rate is 3/4 of a point lower, because of the home price appreciation, you can see his monthly mortgage payment, including PMI, is actually a little higher. So if this guy had waited, his even though the rates came way down, his principal and interest and PMI payment actually went up.
right. I mean, totally. I mean, this is a scenario
Yep.
we see every single day. And if you're out there right now, I know the rates are, if you're looking to buy this spring, right now, Kevin, you said they're around 6, but they're probably breaking over 6 again right now, right?
Right, right. But if you're a
Yeah.
first-time home buyer, you can still get a rate in the fives,
Awesome.
typically. Yep.
Awesome. So, my overview from a home buying perspective. It is if you've been putting it off, or even if you're just new into the market as a home buyer and you're thinking like, what should I do? Should I buy now? I would be out there shopping really hard right now, early spring market. If the rates stay around six, just under six, just over six, it's really not going to matter to a lot of the home buyers. They're going to get in this year. They're going to come out in the spring, they're going to look and they're going to buy this spring and summer. And if you want it to be one of you, I would get out there now. I would be out there starting to look right now, starting to talk with Kevin, getting your mortgage lined up and being ready to go right away. The other scenario I have with people all the time is that sounds great, Kevin and Tracy. That sounds amazing. I want to get to that, let's say it's that $3,100 payment that your client got after 2 years. And they're just like, but I need that now, Kevin. I need that $3,100 payment now. One of the things we can talk about is a mortgage rate buy down, which can either be partially, fully funded by either the buyer, the seller, or a combination of the both. And we can talk about that on a one-on-one call with Kevin or myself or both of us. But that's another scenario where you can get the lower rate now that gives you that lower payment now. And and then over the course of the next couple of years, it goes back to the original mortgage amount. But it gives you a way in now. Kevin, what do you feel about that? Is that still a good strategy, or are you leaning
It's
away
still,
from that?
I like it for borrowers who can see that their income will be going up over the next couple of years.
Right.
So maybe they expect a big bonus coming in, or they have options vesting, or
Yeah.
they're inheriting some money. It doesn't really matter, but if right now it feels like the monthly payments are just a little too much, you can get a buy down and knock your rate down by 2% for a year and then 1% the next
Yeah.
year. And then over those 2 years, you can then start taking advantage of your higher income level to make the higher payments.
Yeah. Or I mean, I have people all the time that come in and say, one of the trends used to be, what's my max borrowing capacity? And they go right to the
Yep.
dotted line. They're like literally right on the line. They're looking at homes right, even a little beyond what their max limit is. And I don't see that a lot anymore. I see more buyers being more conservative, saying, I don't really want to, I don't want to press myself that much. I feel like there's more conservative viewpoints that have come in recent years with the fluctuation of everything, fluctuation of gas prices, grocery prices, everything in general has been very, up and down fluctuating. I mean, gas prices. I filled up 2 weeks ago for 265 and I think they're going to be back over three here any moment. I started to feel really good about the gas and I'm like thinking to myself, like home buyers, like when they fill up the gas tank and even if it takes $10 less than what it normally would, it gives you a positive sentiment about getting out there and maybe buying a house and like feeling like you can do this. So, I like your point, Kevin, to not do it, not use a buy down if you can't afford it, but use the buy down if you just prefer to be a little bit more comfortable for the first couple years and then be waiting for an opportunity to refinance. Most people that would use a buy down are using it as an ability to kind of get a little bit ahead up front, knowing they could still afford it. It's still, even if it gets to 2% off your first year, 1% off your second year, and then third year, the rates still aren't where you want to refinance and you're back at that 6% interest rate. Let's call it six, depending on the day you pre-approve right now. But if you can afford that 6%, so that, if the third year it's not there yet, and where it's the fourth or fifth year before you refinance, or maybe you don't even refinance because at that point you like the principal pay down, that you can still afford it, but you use it as a foot in the door, like before the prices start going up again and you get locked out even further. I've literally seen people locked out of homeownership for 10 years because of waiting for the perfect moment and feeling like it's got to be super comfortable when you buy. Let's face it. In Massachusetts, anyways, it's home ownership is not very affordable, but it's a necessity. Most people want to settle down with their families. They want a place to know that they can do whatever they want to it. They can paint it, they can tear a section off it and rebuild it. They can do whatever they want to it. So homeownership is super important, but it's not incredibly affordable in Massachusetts. But over time, there are the benefits of principal pay down, and there's the benefits of being able to refinance from your couch and know that you're in full control. That is important, right?
Yep.
So if you are interested in buying a home and you're just not sure what to do and you're looking for some help, like really truthful, honest help that may lead you to getting maybe now is not the right time from Kevin or I, then give either one of us a call. We'd love to help you out. Kevin, give everyone watching this video your phone number so they can get a hold of you.
Sure. 617-827-0297.
All right. And my name is Tracy Barber, and my number is 978-400-1617. If you've got any questions, anytime, we'd love to help you out.
Thanks, Tracy.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.